Well, welcome to the Slim Nation's One-on-Ones podcast. And I'm Slim Overton, of course, and I have a special guest here with us today at a special time. And her name is Shelly D Dance. And welcome, Shelly.
Thank
How are
you.
you doing today?
I'm doing
Eh,
well. I saw something you had, I think it put it on social media. It said Shelly D and me. And I like that. It sounds like a whole nother show.
yeah. How about that? That was happenstance, but it did kind of work out, didn't it?
Yes, it
But
did.
anyway, yeah, welcome to the show, and glad to have you here. And let me tell you a little bit about Shelley. Halifax High School, and from there she went to study biology at the Virginia Union University. I want to ask you about that and Halifax, and further her education in biology, education administration. I'm sorry, at Nova Southeastern University. And for years, and we're going to talk about this too, was a science teacher at middle school, biology and science teacher at Chicago. How'd you end up there? And owner and head tutor of Alpha Academy. I got to say Alpha Kappa Alpha, but I'll get to that. Academy tutoring. I guess that has something to do with that. I don't know the Alpha.
It did.
Adjunct professor at Strayer University and Delaney Real Estate LLC. Now, is that associated with Caldwell Bankers
It is.
or you? Okay, because
Yes,
I
it is.
think when we talked, go ahead, we talked before, I noticed, I told you I used to be in real estate and
Right.
now people are under a larger umbrella, but they break off into their um, own little section within under the umbrella. So that's the way this is with you now, under
Exactly.
guardrails, but have to have somewhere to hang your license, right?
You do.
Not unless you're a broker yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, I want to go back to Halifax County.
All right,
Uh,
let's go.
I want is the county Halifax County
It's
up in Northern
Halifax
Virginia?
County, Virginia. Also the city of it is called South Boston, Virginia. It's on the borderline of Roxborough, North Carolina, not too far from Raleigh, Durham,
Yeah,
North Carolina. Yeah, people
yeah,
know it. Surrounded by Lynchburg, Danville, etc.
it was a few people at Union with me from South Boston, and that was the first time I heard about
Really,
South Boston and all those other cities, Danville, of course, in-state college. But how was Shelley in Halifax growing up? What was Shelley
that's a
like?
good question. That's a good question.
Um,
I think it's only fair to mention that I did not spend all of my childhood in Halifax County, Virginia. Halifax County, Virginia is my departed mother's native home.
mhm.
And so I spent the bulk of my childhood in a small place called Hollis, Queens, New York. And then I did finish my high school in Halifax County, Virginia. So I like to tell people I'm a little bit country and a little bit
A
rock and
little
roll.
bit. Indeed.
Yes. But that's how we ended up down there. Long story short, although my brothers were raised all their years in Hollis, my mother did not see it as a place befitting for her very lively, outgoing daughter.
Yeah.
So she brought me to Halifax County, Virginia, which I thoroughly enjoyed it there. It was a new experience for me. It's funny how I hear, especially now that we have social media, a lot of people tend to grow up there waiting to leave. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, I kind of had a ball for the 6 years I was there. But it is when you're new and something's new and exciting. Um, and also I had an opportunity to really get to know that side of my mother's family, because my father's family was mainly in Queens by way of Thomasville, Georgia. Yeah.
Yeah. And let me say this first. We are live, and I want to welcome the people watching on Facebook, the people watching on our YouTube channel, and especially the people watching on the Mary Red Nelson Panther Nation alumni channel on YouTube. So go Panthers if you're
Go
watching out there.
Panthers. Yes.
Anyway, so you know, not a lot of students growing up, their niche is science and biology. They usually try to run away from that. Now, I'm assuming if you taught that once you got, and that was your major at Union, you must have been a pretty good student in those areas coming up in high school and even before that. Am I correct?
You're correct. I really think what led me to that is my mother. She worked in, back then it was called Queens General Hospital. So ever since I was a little child, I spent every single day of my life in a hospital after I left. I went to St. Nicholas to Talentine. That was my school. And then I would spend time there surrounded by science until my mother, got off of work. So after that transition, moving to Halifax, I had a biology teacher named Mrs. Overstreet. I always wish I could have told her that she changed the trajectory of my life, because not only did I notice that a teacher had the power to encourage, but to make a student realize the greatness within. And she did it with a subject that most people hate. She did it with biology. And I
Yes.
wanted to be like Miss Overstreet. So I went to Virginia Union right after high school and majored in biology education.
Yeah, well, Miss Overstreet knows because she probably recognized that talent early on. So going forward, she
She was
knows that
amazing.
you,
She used to like jump on my back, like her hands on my back like that when I was about to cheerlead. She's like, "You got this, and you're gonna
yeah,
pass biology with the flying colors." And she really encouraged me. So hopefully, I know her daughter's on Facebook. Maybe her daughter will show this to her.
yes. So how was your experience at Virginia Union? I know it's a historic
Ah.
HBCU and well, you know, a lot of people. I've had an interview with some alums from there, and this probably wasn't your case, but someone was from Pennsylvania and they'd never heard of Union before they got there. And some of them came from mostly white high schools. And when they got there, it was like a cultural shock to them
Yeah.
because they get there and say, oh, all these black people, even though they were black as well. But how was your experience there? I know the classroom, you excelled in the classroom,
I
but the
do.
college life is a lot more outside of the classroom, lessons learned. So how was it for you?
For me, Union was a game changer. Having growing up again, the bulk of my childhood was in Queens, where we don't have HBCUs, and back then they
Mm,
didn't even
yeah,
speak about them. I didn't know they existed. But thank God I would end up in a place called Halifax County, Virginia. And it was after a cheerleading practice when one of the cheerleaders was speaking of her brother, Jamie Waller. And I
yeah.
was like, I
Basketball
think you
player.
might know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
And I asked her, I said, he sounds like a dynamic player. What school does he go to? Because now I'm trying to explore schools, because my siblings, they did other things like St. John's University. And I did not want to go back to New York. I wanted to stay near my parents. So I learned that he was at Virginia Union University, and I was like, okay, what's that? And that's when the first time I heard of an HBCU. I didn't even know how many there were. I asked them where it was. They said Richmond. I knew Richmond was 2 hours from Halifax. That seemed about
mm,
right, because I didn't want to, again, be far from my parents. Um, Believe it or not, I never saw it. I just knew I wanted to be a part of this experience. And A Different World came out that year, if you remember that show.
yes,
And
yes.
and that
Hillman.
that sealed it. I was like, I gotta be a part of this. There's something great going on up there. And I was right. I was right. Our dear old small school that
Small
people like,
campus.
right? They like to joke about that, but I think it's funny because we are so big. The relationship that we have with one another. Even I feel honored to be in your presence, because I know you are my big brother from Union. And everybody knows us as that school. We are family. You
Yes,
can't mess with us.
yes, indeed. It was kind of funny when I first took my wife back to homecoming, and we were at the football game. She said, my high school stadium is bigger than this. But
Yeah,
that was that was a joke. But we were used to that. But it was something about that
very.
small campus atmosphere where all the professors knew you, and
Yes,
sometimes if you had a problem outside of the classroom, you felt comfortable about going to that. Say, hey, look, I'm having trouble,
absolutely.
even if
Absolutely.
it's with this guy. I mean, whatever it was, it was something you couldn't do on a larger campus
I remember
because
so
there's
well.
just too many people, right?
Yeah,
So that
I
was
would have drowned at a bigger school, I mean. Um, when I got to Union, I personally did not have the self-esteem that most people would have if they're going to come there and do what I did, meaning I majored in a very difficult subject. It was no joke. You're taking physics and chemistry and anatomy and genetics, and you have to pass. And I made sure that not only was I going to pass, but I wanted to graduate with honors. Being that this was a really big deal to my family, a lot of us were first time college grads. But as I explained to you before, my father was born in 1918. My mother was born in 1923. The
mhm,
idea of their youngest going to a university, no matter what the size, and excelling at that school, because I did graduate with honors and I did master this thing that was supposed to be taboo, biology. I actually could
yeah,
have been a doctor, but no, my mindset and still is in the art of teaching. And I do that with my real estate. I'm always educating.
yeah. The real estate is an educator as
Yeah.
well. And
Union
was was
Union
was
changed my
Dr.
life.
Harry Bass there when you were there?
Course. Shout out to Dr. Harry Bass. I believe he lives in Elizabeth City, which isn't too far.
Yeah,
I
he
now live.
came. He came. He came from a small town in Virginia called Crewe, Virginia. He was
Yeah.
my roommate. He was one of my roommates when I was there. Harry
Wow.
Bass.
I
Well,
I I blossomed under Miss Dr. Vass. I really
yeah,
did. They made me realize my potential. You got to
yeah,
realize when I was coming up in the school systems, I always was in class with people from other countries.
hmm,
Catholic schools were kind of like that. So I always I felt inferior academically. And to be honest, that's because a lot of we used to call them foreigners back then, because most of them were from a foreign country. But
yeah,
their idea of education was superior to our idea of what education should be in America. But then I would get to Union and see all of these other faces that looked like me doing such great things. I ended up tutoring mathematics, and I did not know I was that smart. But it was because of people like Dr. Bass and others who, like you said, they cultivate you.
yeah,
They fed me. Sometimes I was dissecting and I missed dinner, and they
yeah.
would buy me dinner. And I don't know if I would have gotten that at even Norfolk State when I'm thinking of a larger HBCU, and definitely not at a larger PWI.
Right. You
It's
just would
just
have
a
had to
number.
go to sleep hungry.
Yeah,
But that's
absolutely.
amazing. Small world. Dr. Bass. He wasn't
Yeah.
my roommate the whole time, but we knew each other the whole time. He was actually in my wedding. Uh,
Wow.
and but we came there as freshmen in Kingsley Hall, and when we got to Store Hall, we were roommates for a year. But and then he roomed with another person that was majoring in biology, who eventually became a doctor, I believe. But
Mhm.
anyway, Harry was a good guy. I went home with him
Yes.
one weekend. We used to go home. He came here to Portsmouth, but I went home to Crewe, and we we got off the bus at a service station. It was a
Wow.
real small
Oh,
town. I
yeah,
think.
Halifax had something like that. A
Yeah, yeah,
little something.
yeah. When you get a chance, look it up. Crewe, Virginia. I think it had about one street, one or two streets, but that was
Didn't
his
Dr.
home.
Bass go to St. Emma, a military school? And sometimes I say it wrong, Powhatan or Powhatan,
Yeah,
Virginia.
yeah. I can't remember. I remember when I was at his house seeing a picture of his graduating class, and it was about 10 of them.
Yeah, Right, right, because that was a
So
private military school
yeah,
for cultivating Black minds. One of my brothers went to that school. They tore down that history, but it was a
yeah,
game changer. It created a lot of greats.
yeah. It was funny to me because at Norcom we came out a class of 400 people. So
Oh boy, that
so
Norcom. I have
to
to get
see a
used to
class.
hearing about that Norcom.
Oh yeah, you don't want to get me started on that. And
Yeah,
one
I
thing we had
tell
the same
people all the time, it's like
colors.
a little HBCU to them.
Yeah, and that's what we call ourselves anyway.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I just want to get that education part. Of course, you went on and furthered your education with a, I guess, master's in education at Nova Southeastern University.
sure did. Yes. At that time, I was living in Halifax County, Virginia, and teaching there. And I was actually being groomed to take over the principal's job. She was leaving. So
Hmm.
I began to train and so that I could do that. But at that time, I was married and he approached me about going into the military.
Mm,
And again, I'm from an old culture. My parents were older people.
yeah,
And you kinda followed their path and you helped them get to where they wanted to be, and so I thought that's, what I was supposed to do, and so we left and we traveled and, I taught here and there. It kinda became spotty, but,
yeah. So I saw Chicago. That must have been an interesting
that was one of the areas, yeah.
experience. Yeah.
It was, outside of New York, as far as urban living, Chicago appealed to me the most. It's just a beautiful city, very diverse, very cultural. I'm trying to stop my dog. He's sleeping, and you hear him chasing another dog in his sleep. So excuse the
Yeah,
noise in the background.
we've had dogs, and I've seen that happen too.
Oh,
But you, the experience you had with traveling around like that and teaching different places, probably, if you think about it, coming full circle with your profession you're in now, that probably helped you. All that experience probably helped you as far as a real estate agent and or a realtor. And let me give you the professional designation, a realtor.
look, I pay
And
good money to hold that rank.
yes, yes, I mean, like I said, we kind of wear that proudly, being a realtor,
Yes,
and sometimes we have to direct people. I'm not just an agent; I'm a realtor. I'm a
yes,
professional
it's a
at what I
difference.
do. So, excuse me for not saying that in the beginning. But anyway,
No,
it probably made you because I see you talk about how often you're more than just a realtor to your clients or customers,
yeah,
and you teach, you nurture, and I think most good real estate realtors do that. Kind of care about because also saw you work with a lot of first time home buyers, which is a
absolutely.
very significant move for them, and they need someone that's nurturing and caring and things
They
like
do.
that. So
They do.
so how did you, and we'll get to that, how did you make that transition? Because most people I know that teach have a passion for that, for teaching. And that's why a lot of them teach for 40 years and retire in that profession. So,
Absolutely.
and I know if you taught science and biology, you had to have a passion for it because
I did.
that's not even, it was probably a challenge when you were learning it, but trying to teach students that, you're going to have a few exceptional students in there that pick it right up. But, most students, oh, come on, science, man, I'm waiting to get to gym or something like that.
Exactly.
How,
Not in my
what,
class, no.
yeah, how about that?
Not in my
Talk about
class.
that transition that you made. And I read, some things you said, and it's kind of interesting how you decided to make it part-time and then, let me just go
Right,
for it.
right.
Faith, leap of
Um,
faith.
a lot of times when you're growing up, the boys were playing trucks or whatever and basketball, and we played dolls, house, whatever. I played 2 things only. I was either a teacher or I sold property. I've
Wow,
always
that
had a
early.
passion. Yeah, I had a passion for both. I can recall visiting Florida at the age of 10 and asking my mom, look, it's, for sale sign. Can we go in and see the house? And back then you could trouble realtors and not be a pre-approved and see the property. I don't know where that came from, but I ride in a car right now. And my biggest thing is, oh, look at that. Look at that. I have a thing for buildings, for property. And
Mhm.
I put that love with the love of people. I have a way of approaching people, being concerned about their needs, and I get this part from, I think, from my mother. Just a way I can vacillate between demographics, ethnicities, and just find a comfortable place. And people are comfortable with me. They see that I am authentic, and I fight for them, so that especially people, the Black and brown community, that real estate have shown me we're at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
And I have found that it has become my calling to make, especially the youngsters as well, realize that there is legacy, there is wealth in ownership. And a lot of them don't know how or why. And I'll stay up to midnight sometimes just teaching and talking and coaching. And it's nothing
Yeah.
like giving them the keys that day when that day comes.
Yeah. We talked about that and how there's no timetable on
Oh,
when you
no.
might have
Oh,
to
this is not for
sign
the
a
weak.
contract or
This is
or,
not for the
or
weak.
do something.
It's funny to me. A
And
lot of people think, "Oh, I'll do real estate and I'll make a lot of money and I'll be okay." No, it's not that easy. It took me 3 years, for one, to build it to the level that it is right now. And I was so naive. I didn't know that becoming at that time top 4% in 3 years was not a big deal. I'm humble. I figured if I did it, surely this is what everybody can do, right? But
mhm.
there was an old rap song used to be out called "I'm a hustler, baby."
Yeah.
I'm a natural
And
hustler. I love to grind. People get on me about it. I love to do it. So if you're watching, please stop talking about how much I work. This is my
yeah.
passion. Let me
Well,
be
you have
happy.
to be in that business. You have to be in that business, and and I hear you talking about your compassion for the customers, and you're open to everybody that needs your services. But it's important to some people to work with someone that looks like them. And a lot of times, when you're working with people that look like you, some people they don't give you a one chance.
One
I
chance
ran
and
into
one
that when
shot only.
they might give somebody else another chance, but they give you one chance, and then they say, "I'm not working with them anymore." But in most cases, that's not everybody, but some people are just like that. But
I've
some
noticed.
people, yeah, that I know you've seen that, and all professions, doctors, psychologists, and things like that. Sometimes people feel comfortable with somebody that looks like them, so you really have to go that extra mile for them to make them feel comfortable in that
Mhm.
huge purchase and that huge, sometimes
A
30-year
huge investment.
commitment that they're making. So
Absolutely. Biggest investment of their lives, and I treat them all the
right,
same, whether you're buying a flip for 50,000 or you're over a half a million, you're still the same. And I feel honored that they trust me to do this transaction, because it's a big deal.
yeah, and sometimes you have to be a counselor as well. They might qualify for a certain amount, but that doesn't mean you need to go buy that certain amount house
Yeah. Oh, but
because
counsel on many levels. I've cried. I've fought. I've hugged. My client and I were just apologizing and hugging 2 days ago because we
mm,
came. We were butting
some
heads.
sometimes you have to be that person that really speaks up for them, advocates for them if they don't see it themselves. So I qualify for 300, 400,000. I'm gonna get me a 300, $400,000 house, which might not be the best thing for you.
No,
You
but you
might
know what
need
I have them doing now because they understand it better. I tell them to shop the mortgage. I said, okay, great, especially if they're young and don't really know. They say, "Oh, I got approved for 350." I said, "Great." I said, "Why don't you call the lender and ask them what the mortgage is on these three properties we're going to go see?" Because I have learned they'll go out and they'll love this 300,000. When they realize they're going to be paying $2,600 a month, I've wasted time showing the house, doing
Yeah,
the work.
yeah,
Yeah. So I tell them, shop the mortgage. See if you're comfortable with that. Yeah.
yeah. You really have to be careful with that. You know, I want to read something that I read on your and sort of getting into politics a little bit, but it has something to do with real estate. Something I
Okay.
saw. I know what's going on in politics, the economy, the markets. However, I don't spend time arguing about it. I collect my data and focus on the mission. You want to reach personal goals while not being distracted. I think I left a few words out there, but I thought that was kind of compelling. You know, a statement that really describes the ultimate realtor. You know what's going on in the political world and everything like that, and you are aware, and sometimes that
Yes,
affects what you're doing.
it
But you have to
does,
be focused on the mission and not be distracted. And it really fits these days because it's a lot of distractions going on
isn't
that
it?
might take people away from making the right decision, as we were talking about earlier. So
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit, that statement and how it fits in with what we're dealing with today. With the market and everything. Do you see it affecting the real estate markets? With everything that's going on, the uncertainty of the
Right.
markets, and being distracted by what the administration might be doing, regardless of how you feel, if you are on
Absolutely.
their side or against them.
Absolutely. People are scared. People are scared. I've noticed, especially in our area, we're very military based here in the Hampton Roads
Right.
area, and that is our biggest transient clientele. They're coming in 3 months, they're leaving. I mean, coming in and then leaving in 3 years, right? Now
Mhm.
they're coming in and they're saying, "Okay, I just want to rent because I don't know what's going to happen." So
Right.
not only just them, but it's everyone. And I know that I'm a bit adventurous like my mother used to be, but at the end of the day, I always say, date the rate, marry the house. I personally, and that's my own personal experience. If I love the property, I get it for me. I don't even
Mhm.
care what the interest rate is because I can always change it. When it goes down,
Right.
I'll redo it. So I still stand by that because no matter what happens, one thing is for sure: buy some property and wait. Buy some land and wait, because that has a proven track record over centuries. Again, being from sometimes a disenfranchised culture, we don't have the luxury of knowing what 50 years or 100 years and plus of ownership can change the trajectory of an entire generation, but it can. And
Indeed.
so I say begin today. When is the best time to buy real estate? Today.
Yeah, that's
Even
always
though
been the case.
it's always
When's
been
the
the
best
case, no
time?
matter
Right
what's
now.
going on around you, it's always going to be the case, and the smart ones know that. And if they don't know it, I'm out here telling them, I'm teaching them.
And you remember you said you had older parents, and back in the day, everybody from those eras said, if you get some land, hold on to it. You can pass it down because it never, it's going to always raise in price. It's going to
Yeah,
always be a value to you. So, and that
exactly.
still holds true now. Yeah. So you
Yeah,
can't let all the distractions that's going on now sort
let
of
it do
scare you
it.
away from, because you really can waste time if you're in a position to own. And even if you're in the military and you're traveling around, at least you own that, as opposed to
Exactly.
renting and paying into something every year and getting nothing in return.
Right,
So
right. And I mean, you can wait if you want, but that same house is going to cost you more next year, 2 years from
down the
now.
road,
So you end up hurting yourself, actually.
or that home would be somebody else's dream.
Or it would be someone else's dream, and I don't believe in waiting on the dream, whatever that dream is. It's funny you brought up that quote from my Facebook page.
Mhm.
where I said, I see what's going on in the world, in the markets and everything. But, from a personal perspective, that's who I am. You're not going to get me to argue over foolishness, uh,
Right.
no matter what the
Waste of
topic may
time.
be. And you can sit around and fight about what the Bible is all about, and I'm quiet. If it says it in the Word, I'm okay. If you can show me, so I'm just a show me person, not a let's argue about the foolishness and the things that are going on in the world. Focus on what matters, those things that maybe you can change.
Yeah.
Even in this
What you
season,
have control over.
on
Yes.
what you have can even in this season of the new administration, focus on what you can control in your world and stop worrying about those many things going on in the White House. I told you that's why I want you to have a podcast with my partner, because outside of law, his other passion is politics. So I'm not
Oh,
the one.
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We ready for that. I have him on the other podcast
He's
where we
ready
had a
to.
co-host that really like to dive into the politics. So we'll still
Absolutely.
make that connection. We'll still make that connection. I also see that certain spirituality in you,
You
and,
too.
and most people in any kind of profession need that because, like I said to someone yesterday, life be lifing,
I love that
and
saying.
it doesn't pass over anybody.
No, it doesn't.
From the outside, we can look at you and say, "Oh man, looks like she's just enjoying life and having." But
I know how to put it together.
it's, but everybody faces their own challenges.
Yes.
So that spiritual part comes into play, and it's usually very helpful. I want to go back to Union and maybe before that, because if you went to Union, you know about chapel credits. You know
Don't
about
play.
chapel every week. And a lot of people that come there find that spirituality once they're there. But some people come there with it. How was it for you?
I came there with it. I grew up an old
From the home.
Pentecostal girl, so I came with it hard. Okay,
Mhm,
to this very day, I think I'm very conservative because the older Pentecostal way was
mhm,
kind of to me dogmatic. I hope I'm not making any enemies, but it is what it is. I couldn't wear makeup. I couldn't cut my hair. Certain clothing had to be below my knees. I definitely couldn't wear pants and nail polish, and I grew up that way. And Emmanuel, it was the name of the church in the Bronx, Sweet Emmanuel. I loved it, even though I was little. Give me my tambourine and a good song and good ministry, and I was fine. So I came to Union with that spirituality already in me. But the funny part
mhm.
about it, Mr. Slim, I didn't take advantage of the chapel as much as I could, because by the time I got to Union, I had been to so much church for so many hours. I needed just a little break,
You
and
need to
Union
let
was
your
my
hair down a
break.
little bit, so to speak. And
Yes.
and don't be surprised. Well, you probably know you were there and you had roommates and a lot of
Yeah.
your schoolmates there. A lot of people came there and had that same experience, and that was kind of good in a way for a lot of the people because in most cases that seed was already planted, so it
Mhm.
was going to continue to grow. But you just needed that period to sort of say, "I need a break." Here we used to call, you said Pentecostal, we used to call it the Holiness Church.
The
And
Holy Rollers.
I remember the first time I went into a holiness church, it was, because I came from one of those quiet Baptists,
I
where you don't shout.
I heard of
If
them.
anybody shouts, everybody turns around and looks at him. What's wrong with him? But
Yes,
he was just feeling it. He was feeling it. But went to a holiness church. They had guitars and tambourines and,
and I
drums.
actually I don't want it any other way. Even
I said,
now,
Showtime.
yeah, Showtime, right?
And now my church has all that. The Baptist church I grew up in, now we have
Things have
all of that.
changed,
And like most
right?
churches do now, but it
Things
was
have
different
changed.
then. So yeah, so that experience. So you had to go through that grow. You had to have those growing pains, and I used pains, but they weren't really pains. They were just you were just growing up and experiencing different things for the
growing
first
up.
time, and
You know,
that was
Union was the
necessary.
sweetest period of my life. I had a beautiful childhood. I had a phenomenal childhood.
Hmm.
But ever since Union, I can't think of anything that was as magical, if that's a good word to use. I can't associate, and I've had some brilliant travels, and I had wonderful children, but I cannot think, if I could do it all over again, take me right back to Union.
Get me right back there and let me and not change a thing because
Nothing.
all the ups and downs you went through were necessary as well. Imagine coming there and you spend most of your time in Queens, and you come in there and you meeting somebody from Georgia, or Atlanta. Seemed like you spent some time in Atlanta too,
I
or
did. Mhm.
California, or Texas, and you used to the Queens, the way you talked up there and the attitudes you have. And a lot of people, and you be somebody from Georgia and say you think that they, because of the way they talk, they might be a little slow, but that wasn't the case. You might think that until you got to know that person and say, it's no different for me. It's just the dialect is just a little different, you
No
know.
different either, but you know what was different about me? Because I had that time in Halifax County before coming to Virginia Union, I
Mhm.
already was very balinced. I did not
So you
belong to the
already
cliques of New
had
York.
your indoctrination before
Yeah,
you
I
got
did.
there.
Right. I did not belong to cliques because I saw myself as a part of both. I learned to love the ways and the things that I find so beautiful about Halifax County, Virginia. I have
Mm,
relationships with the people I went to high school with. People I went to school with in New York, I don't even know where they are. Some of the people from Halifax have become my family, a part of my
mm,
fabric. But yet again, you will never ever take New York out of me either. That is my home. So when I
mm.
got there, I was one of those that didn't look down on them because they dressed differently or they had an accent. And I didn't hang out with the cliques from New York because I actually, here's the truth, finally coming out here live on your show. I thought it was
Live.
I thought it was silly that they came in like showboat. This is where we from. This is I was
Yeah.
like, really?
The New York and the DC people, they were something special,
Hmm.
and I had some of my best friends, but I felt that way at first until I got to know them, and they got to know us and say, I'm coming out here thinking I'm Mr. New York, but
Hmm.
and you guys don't have the experience that I have, but they
Right.
found out, some of them found out real quick
Uh-oh. They found
that
out real quick.
we
Yeah.
knew just as much and we were just as prepared for them,
If not
but
more
it,
prepared, to be
if
honest.
not more prepared. But it was a whole experience just getting to know people. So all of that put together,
Yeah.
and getting back to your modern day things you're doing, and I see that you still have things going on, or in Halifax where you were looking for some people to do some work. Did I see
Oh,
that on?
yes, yes. I was an investor before I was a realtor. That was
Okay.
part of my transition. And because I've learned so much by being in real estate myself, shame on me if I don't take advantage of the opportunities that a lot of people are sleeping on.
Right,
So
right.
so yeah, there was actually a property that someone I went to high school with in Halifax. They shared it with me because it's a flip. So I was kind of seeing if I could find somebody so maybe I could get the flip, but that one didn't pan out. That's okay. There'll be others.
Yeah, that'd be others. So, all of this part of the process, let's say.
That's right. That's right. Yes, all a part of the process.
So what, as a realtor here now, and do you still do the tutoring that I saw in your bio?
Yes, I don't do education components as much as I used to, because honestly, if you're doing a certain level of real estate, you cannot be of good use to your clients if you have another full time. That was
Yeah,
a tone for my part timers out there. It's hard to get in touch with them and get the deal done, but
yeah.
but yes, because I still love, I have a gift to show people things that they would not normally understand or comprehend. And I think that's because I struggled in schools growing up. Like when they were teaching time, I would go home and reteach it to me. What I learned from that is that it's not always that children are slow or can't catch on. The one model that they teach us in school to go out and teach in the classroom doesn't fit everybody. So I would reach students by meeting them where they were. I remember once when I was teaching in Halifax County, and one of the boys said to me, because we were doing algebra, and he said, I didn't know I was this smart. I used to think I was so stupid. I'm not stupid anymore. I was like, son, you never were.
Never were,
You
never
never
were.
were. You
Just
just
couldn't
have
keep
to
up. We
learn
just
how
had
to
a
teach the children. They
had a
used to
different
say
way of
that he
learning.
was a problem. He wasn't a problem. He was funny. Other
Yeah,
teachers saw him as a problem. I thought he was a brilliant, comedian.
yeah,
But I
and
told him
that's
there's a place for that.
and most comedians, as you know, are brilliant, brilliant people. They might not have been the best students, but to get up there and do what they do,
Not
and be
easy.
able to hold all those facts, and a lot of them come at you with real stuff and just makes it funny. So they are brilliant people, and that's why I wanted to ask you. As a former teacher, the profession now, or the curriculum they use now, or the approach to teaching now is a little different as far as concentrating on being able to pass a test. I never was really good on standardized tests,
Me.
and also people that were some people in high school that didn't feel like they were good students didn't think about college because they didn't feel like they could make it. And I was one of them. I ran into a lot of people that did better in college than they did in high school. For one thing,
I was one of
the
them.
individual teaching situation they would be in sometimes with their professors, and uh, a lot of it was individualized. Where you had to go to the library and learn some things on your own at your own pace. In
Yes,
many cases, as far as high school might have been a little more structured and a little too much or fast for you. So, do you feel that that's hurting some of our students? You have some students going to excel no matter what uh,
absolutely.
is out there, but some students, the way you might have taught when you were teaching compared to the way the teachers want to teach now, that's a lot of them are leaving the profession because of that.
Yeah,
You think
it
that's
was a
hurting
part
the
of
students?
a huge part of the reason why I lost interest in it. Because the reason I was successful in the classroom was because I had more, I don't want to say control, but they did give me more control on how I delivered the information. So I used games. I was playing Family Feud and making up rap songs, but they understood the biology. When it started to shift towards testing, that's when things changed. When they said, oh, you got to get these numbers from these kids. We don't care if they're not learning, just make sure they pass these
Just make
tests.
sure.
It took the joy out of teaching for me. It
Yeah,
really
and
did.
especially in science and biology, where uh, critical thinking comes into play
Uh,
really strong there in in all the subjects, but especially those two subjects. Some of the things that you in science and biology are exact, but a lot of things you just have to figure out on your own. So
yes,
through trial and error, that's what all the experiments come from. So once you
absolutely.
take that away, or the ability to teach that way, I think you're really putting students at a disadvantage, and
Yeah.
then you're putting people out there in the world that can't critically think. Then they're going to be in trouble down the road. When
Oh,
they
oh
face the
yes.
situations where they have to figure it out.
I see it in real estate. I'm not bragging, but the last three transactions I've been working on, I've sort of had to work the other side too, because it requires, you have to be able to pivot and shift and it's
Yeah,
just a lot of
yeah,
changes, and they
compromise and yeah,
freeze because they can't think of, okay, what should I do now to
yeah. I
make,
want you to pay points. I want you to, do this, and I'm
yeah,
not paying points, and then you have to convince the buyer, look, if you want to sell this house, and I mean, not the buyer, you have to tell the seller, if you want to sell this house, you have to give in to some of these things. And then on the other hand, if you're representing the buyer, you have to tell them, you know, it's counseling both sides. I guess you work with both buyers and sellers. Am
I
I correct?
do. I do. It's
I've
been
seen,
mostly sellers, but yes, I do buyers
yeah,
also.
I've seen some people that go exclusive and they're just buyers agents or sellers agents.
Right.
I
I
don't
just
know
like
if that's
people. I don't care.
I don't know if that's the best way to go, but if it works for that particular person, that's fine. But yeah, it's a whole lot of give and take there, and you got to be able to figure out what works and makes everybody happy.
That part,
If you
and
want to
it's
close that
definitely been
deal.
my analytical skills. I really wholeheartedly believe that has made me the kind of professional, the entrepreneur that I am, because I can do 99 million things at one time perfectly, because I'm just
Mhm.
able to work my mind like that. So the science is still in effect, and complete with again my mother's personality, and the two merges together, and makes me perfect. Actually, it feels like a calling. Real estate does.
Yeah, so I don't know if you do any speaking to young people or adults. What would you say, if you were talking to a group of people that are thinking about being entrepreneurs or haven't thought about it, to sort of influence them or convince them that, it's something that they should try, or they have it, they have it within themselves to be an entrepreneur and the advantages of being there, because not everybody wants to work for somebody. Some
That's
people are
true.
just
That's
not
why I can never
wired
go
that
back.
way.
No going back. There's no going
You see,
back.
see those people that have about 95 different jobs because I can't work with that person. That's the person that needs to be, maybe you need to look at a different way of living your life. But what would
Exactly.
your what would your conversation be like with someone that you that's came to you and for advice in that area?
Right. And I do have people come to me. The first thing I say, please don't be fooled by what you see on TV or even social media. I've kind of gotten away from it this year, but I used to constantly market my sales. Um,
Hmm.
and it made it look so easy. And then I
Yeah.
was making money hand over fist. Yes, I made good money, but they didn't see me just last night at my computer until 1 in the morning to make
Hmm.
sure things were ready for 6 o'clock this morning when they were texting me before they went to work. This is not something you can do if you don't have it in you to keep working if there's nobody standing over you. I don't go in the office much. My bedroom is around the corner, but I
Hmm.
don't go to bed. But that's because
Right.
I have a discipline. You must have a discipline in anything you choose to do to stay at it, because now you don't have that boss or that manager, whatever you call it. Most importantly, though, I encourage you, if you are interested in being an entrepreneur, because there's nothing like ownership. Even though I work under the name of Coldwell Banker Premier and Delaney Real Estate LLC, that's my ownership. This how I cultivate my business and nurture my clients and do the things that I do day in day out is basically because of the ownership that I have in my own business. It makes me have a certain love. My name is on that. My face is on
Right.
that. So it's important that they get exceptional service every time they work with me.
Yeah, I think that's important. When I start seeing that kind of those kind of situations happening in the real estate markets, with the larger companies, and different groups within the company were forming their own associations. I thought that was really cool because everybody had a different way of working,
It is.
And to be under a umbrella or be under a company that was so structured that you had to follow every rule that they had,
Mhm.
it sort of held some people back sometimes. And that's why you saw agents sometimes switching different companies to they were trying to find the right place for them. But once you have something within the company that you can call your own, and all you have to do is create results, and that
Right.
company will leave you alone, pretty much. I'm
Pretty
assuming
much.
that's the case. I'm
That
assuming,
is.
pretty much, as long as you fall under certain guidelines, you have to follow under that company's rule. But pretty much, you pretty much have your own business within a business.
You do.
And
You do. It is your own business. You're just actually attached to a name that you trust and that you like, but it is your own business. But I think it does make a difference who you're under. I have not built my team like I want it to be yet. I am kind of interviewing and looking at people now,
yeah,
but
that
I
takes a while because you have to find people that kind of fit your personality, and not being selfish, but you know they have to fit that in some way in order for you to work together, because it's a lot of collaboration and a lot of trust that goes into that, and a lot of say, well, you have your own things, but can you hold this open house for me? Can you do this for me while I'm
right.
on vacation sometimes, or while I'm over here doing
Yeah.
something else? And you have to trust that that person is going to do for you like you would do for that person, for
That's
those
why I'm kind of slow
for
with
those
doing
people.
it. It's not easy to
Yes,
find
yes. Take your time.
people like, yeah, I will. It's not easy. You can only imagine what kind of work ethic I have. Again, what? Daddy was born in 1918 and mommy was born in
Yeah,
1923. They used to be sharecroppers before they
right.
moved to New York. And I say that because anybody knows that's some hard labor. But they
Hard
took that
labor.
labor mindset to New York and did other things, telephone company, worked at the hospital, and created a life, an extraordinary life for me and my siblings. But under
Hmm.
them, I also learned a work ethic that I unfortunately don't see other people having that are in my age group, and definitely not younger. But see, because of them, thank you, mom and dad. I'm not afraid to do it right the first time, and keep doing it until it's done. Uh, and and I didn't even know that about me. I had a friend go out with me once, and her name is Keita. And Keita said, Shelly, I realize why you're so successful at this. And I said, why? What do you see? She said, here, meaning Hampton Roads, I haven't seen people work, push as hard as you do and go as hard as you go. And maybe she said that's a little bit of your New York culture, because I'm from North Carolina, she said, and you move a little different. But
Hmm.
to tell the truth, I moved like my mother, and she was not New York. She was Halifax County, Virginia. So,
Yeah, just like I said earlier, those seeds are planted real early, and
yeah,
it, sometimes it takes a little while for them to grow, but they eventually grow, and whatever they put into that seed grows within you, and you become a lot like them, and
yeah.
usually
I
in a
didn't like it
positive
at
way.
first. Back in the day, waking me up 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday to get up and do my chores. What?
Yeah,
I
but
get it now,
but you see how
mommy.
well that paid off now.
I get it now.
You didn't like it then. Yeah, you get it now. Then you probably pass that on to
Yes and
you
no.
became her.
I balanced it when it came to my kids. I wanted them to play, but they also had chores. And even to this
Mhm.
day, I'm grateful that my sons, I see where they're very balanced. Yeah, they like video games, but I've never seen them glued to it. Hello to
Yeah,
anybody that's
yeah.
glued to it, because
You
that's
have to
not
give them a
good.
little rope.
Yeah. Yeah. So I definitely raise them in a balanced way, but and so they're wholesome. They're hard workers, but they know how to party too.
But anyway, I really want to thank you for coming on, and I hope you come on again.
Thank
And
you.
like you said, we'll connect with your political friend, the attorney there, and
Okay.
have and we have plenty to talk about every day. our president gives us that, and just locally and statewide as well. You know, don't have to be on the national scene and throughout the
Awesome.
world.
I would
So
love
I
the
appreciate you coming on.
opportunity. Mhm.
And you know, I just want to say I looked back on some of the texts, and I had almost forgotten when you first contacted us. You know, when you heard about the uh, Hampton Roads Alumni Association,
Yes.
and you were trying to find out who to get in touch with. And I remember sending, gave you the president at the time's number. So, like I told you now, the president now is your Soros. So you might want to reconnect. So I'll make sure I make that happen.
Absolutely. We're family. I need my family. Get
Yes,
together.
indeed.
Let's get do some community service and all the other wonderful things. Yes.
Yeah, and that's what we're working on doing. We're working on our big fundraiser now, but we try to get together and do things, especially for the students in this area that are attending union right now. So
Okay.
I want
Okay.
to ask you now if I don't know if you have any last words you like to leave with the audience.
Well, I more so want to leave something with you.
Okay.
The next time we talk, I want us to address the people out there that are discouraged, that are hurting, that are going through some things that they think they cannot get through. Because I've noticed that there's a certain thing in me that people see and they're drawn to me, sir. And they're drawn to me, thank God for my spirit and my ability to make them realize that tomorrow is a better day. As a cancer survivor, as a multiple sclerosis thriver, as someone who's been through some physical, emotional, mental abuse in my past. And that's why earlier when you said, I was looking kind of good, I
Mhm.
take pride in not looking like anything of what I have been through. But I feel like I have a mantle on me to reach back, especially to the next woman that feels like they cannot see tomorrow, that maybe they're depressed and they don't even want to live. I want to be there for those people. So if this could be a beginning platform, Shelly D and me, as you wrote, let's do it
Yeah,
because people are waiting. They need us.
yeah. You probably will need a whole show specifically based on that because you
You
know
think so?
I feel you. I feel you where you're coming from, and I remember
You
reading that
do?
about what you experienced, and I just I forgot to bring it up. So I'm glad I gave you that last
That's
minute
okay. I remember.
to yeah to say that, and I'm glad you said that too because I've gone through some medical issues myself as a heart transplant recipient, and so it's always on my mind to encourage people, you know, that it's never over. You know, you have to have
Absolutely.
faith. You have to have faith in God and yourself and those doctors,
Yeah.
for one thing. But you know, and talking about it, talking it out. You know, so many people hold things inside, and that's why
Yeah.
you see some of the suicide rates up. You know, people holding things within themselves when
I
all
used
they
to
had
be
to
one of
do.
those people, but I talk now. Oh boy, it's therapeutic for me to speak my truths, and
Yes.
uh, and I think that's a lot of reason why I was sick a lot. I used to keep everything inside,
Hmm.
and my body just kind of manifested it in sickness and disease.
Yeah, and that's true because I remember one of the doctors telling me that because the whole time I was waiting, you know, to be on the list and being on the list and waiting for something to be available. And you know, you have those thoughts that say, you know, for me to live, someone has to die. You know, those kind of things go through your head, and
Yes.
you say, "Is it worth it?" You know, but but then I always tried to keep a positive attitude, and the whole time I was in and out of the hospital, every day I had a positive. My daughter turned me on to Facebook. I had a positive, something positive to say every day, and the doctor said that my positive attitude was half my battle. You know, because if I had a been woe is me or why me.
No,
It
no,
would have been
no.
a lot more difficult for my body to handle all the things that it was going through physically at that time.
Your
But the
doctor.
mind is a powerful thing, you
It
know,
is.
mind over matter, you know.
And this
So
too. That
yeah,
that mouth, that
yeah,
tongue.
yeah. And you mentioned therapeutic. That kept me, you know, just talking about it and sometime occasionally making jokes about it just kept me.
Yes.
You should have seen some of the jokes I made about it, but just
You should see
it
some of
just kept
mine. I
me.
can't do them on here because I
It
had
kept
a
me alive.
bilateral mastectomy. So amongst my family and friends, I have some jokes, and they're like, "How can you joke about it? Because I'm here, and I'm
Yeah.
happy to be here."
Some people didn't understand it, you know, because and some people didn't laugh, but some people were nervous about laughing. I said, "Well, I told it for to be funny, and I'm offended if you don't laugh." But anyway, it was an experience, but it was something that I had accepted. You know, if it was my time to go, I was ready.
Yes.
If God still had something for me to do on this earth, I was ready for that too. So, you know, and that kept me pretty balanced as far as what I was going through, and it worked out. It worked out. I'm still here. You know,
Amen.
there's always going to be challenges, but you know,
This is
like
true.
like like you say, you don't look like what you've been through,
No,
and you can't. And once you start looking like what you've been through, you better you better do something else.
that's right. That's right, Mr. Slim.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll do that. We'll talk more about that. And because I'm sure you have a lot more. You probably have a whole program of things
I have
that
a
you can
lot to
tell
say. I
people.
haven't said much in 10 years. It's been 10 years.
Yeah.
This is my anniversary of being in remission. And
Oh, okay. Good.
and because it
Congratulations.
also came with some other dark places in my life, I kept quiet, but I'm ready to speak.
Okay, we'll do that because you know I've been thinking of just like you under the umbrella of Caldwell Bankers. I was thinking about having different programs under the Slim Nation YouTube thing. I already
Okay.
have one in the making right now. And I said, if I could have different programs to deal with certain issues, you know, not everybody wants to talk
Use me.
for an
Use
hour
me.
or so about politics, but some people need that encouragement. Some people need to be inspired, you know. So you never know who you're helping. And this platform gives us an opportunity for people to make comments, and some people can, you know, comment in. You don't even have to see them or know who it is, and
Right.
talk about what
They'll reach.
they're
They'll
going
reach
through.
who it's supposed to reach.
Yeah, and plus I can bring them on if they want to come on. I can bring them
Exactly.
on live. You know,
Yes.
so there we go.
There
Everything
we
happens for a
go. You
reason.
unite.
Everything happens for a reason. But I want to say to those Spartans out there that say, "Behold, the green and gold." I want to say to you, for real, the maroon is steel.
Amen to that.
And you can give a shout out to your sorors.
A shout out to my sorors of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Have a blessed day, ladies.
Yeah, and the last thing, did you give any? You give how people can get? I believe you have a website page and or how people can get in touch with you if they need your services. If not,
I
I'll make
do
sure
have
I'll
a
put it up.
website page. I wasn't prepared to do that, but I have a number. If it's okay to give it, you let me know.
Yeah, yeah, and give it to me, and I'll put it up on the feed afterwards.
Okay,
I think I have it here.
that number is 910-467-6009. And I answer up to 8 o'clock at night. After that, you can keep calling and I'll get
Keep
right
going.
back with you in the morning.
If you keep calling, she might say, "Hey, this might be important. Let me answer this phone." Hello.
That part too.
Okay, thank you, and thank everybody for watching, and especially those people on the Mary Red Nelson Panther Nation Alumni Show. Glad you all were able to join us here on the Slim Nation One-on-Ones podcast today. And make sure if you're watching on Facebook or on the YouTube channels, make sure you like, subscribe, make sure you make your comments, even if you watch it later. And also share this information. I think you enjoyed. And stay tuned for more from Shelly Dance. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Let me see. Now you have to just put on that smile while we're waiting to go off. See you, everybody.
It's time for us to sit down at the table and turn this chaos into something stable. For love, one-on-one. We will not accept defeat, not on our land, not in our streets. Getting it done, reaching out to save the youth, letting them know the truth. Slim Nation is where good conversations dwell.